Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to ZWIFT Community Live broadcast of the KISS Choice Race Europe edition in the evening. And we are out on the 2018 UCI World Short Lap for 2 laps today. It's going to be a longer race. Got a lot of climbing up in front of us and a lot of big hitters that have jumped into the A race. I currently see 138 sitting in the pens with 1:12 to go to the start of the race. I'm Nathan Guerra. Alongside of me is going to be my co-host, Greg Leo, for all of the racing action. Greg, welcome to the broadcast. And what do you think is going to go down today
again
for this race?
Well, we're going to ride around on the internet, and there'll be some climbing. There'll be a lot of climbing today. Probably a full 30 minutes plus of climbing are ahead of us here. Probably each of these climbs be in the 16-20 minute range on how fast the riders go. That's the nature of cycling. I think it's going to be pretty intense. Some bigs.
Yeah, as far as the climbing goes, I mean, we've got a lot of big hitters here. I mean, that kind of causes the race to maybe be a little bit more about holding hands until we hit that point, out on the climbs.
Yeah, I think that's going to be right. I mean, especially with the second climb to come as well, maybe it's going to be a little bit tame, unless some of these guys are out there going for the KOM time. We could we've got the current KOM holder, Leandro Messina from the draft team out here. He might be looking to better his time. Some other guys might be looking to unseat him. So that could reduce the first climb time as well. So let's just see what happens.
Yeah, we're kicking off right away here. 169 total in the race. The El Chapa here coming out of Canada, kicking off from the get-go here. Open all as well there. Now, a couple of the people that are showing up today, some of the names are going to be a lot of really familiar names that are jumping in here. Legvox from Vision. We saw that Herman was up in here from Vision as well. Obviously, Alex West from a new team out on course that we'll talk a little bit out here, actually, as I'm seeing it in the right-hand side of the course right now, of the ZWIFT feed, actually. This new team, if you start seeing Canyon on the right-hand side of the screen, we'll chat a little bit about that. We've got an interview actually coming in, maybe even 2 interviews. We'll see if the DS from the team wants to jump in with us here, but it's interesting to see some of the developments that are taking place within the community alongside the KISS Super League as well as the KISS Community League. There's a lot happening in the ZWIFT world along with cycling. But as we do see here, right from the get-go, a little bit of a break taking place here with Stockbro going off the front. Unfamiliar with this rider coming out of Denmark with a verified badge. Greg, if you could, who is Stockbro? That's going to be the question here with the verified badge jumping in here out of Denmark off the front immediately. 148 beats per minute. It's going to be interesting to see if this rider is, maybe a professional or somebody well-known, obviously, within the ZWIFT or cycling. Hanging out with that verified badge. As always, everybody, if you do want to jump into the broadcast with any questions or comments, being a community league stream, we definitely want to bring in your questions or comments throughout the broadcast. If you do want to jump in with us, go ahead and chat with us over on Twitch, Mixer, or YouTube, as well as on Twitter. Go ahead and bring in any of your questions or comments. I do see you, Stuart Lynn. I do see you saying that my audio is a little bit low. We'll have to see if that's, if we need to bring that up just a little bit. I think Greg was telling me before the broadcast that I was yelling too much while we were doing the audio checks. But we'll see if, we got these new mics, man. They're messing with me, I guess, here. But, all Grupo Compacto at this point. Anything that you can see within the group so far here, Greg, as far as who might be able to take out today? You said Leandro is hanging out. Obviously, holding down the current KOM is going to be a situation where the riders going to be watching out for the guy who literally has the fastest time to the top of this climb. So what do you think here? I mean, is anybody going to be able to challenge him? We've got a national champion in real life, Ingvar Omerson. Here's Ingvar coming out of Iceland. I did see him jump into the race here. Actually, not super familiar with racing, as we saw in the KISS Super League with the professionals. A lot of times unable to follow the tactics or not always able to win the races. But being a straight uphill race, maybe all about power today. What are you thinking, Greg?
You know, it's really, I think it's going to come down to, you know, that 20-minute power on this race. You know, there are definitely a couple riders who can take on Leandro. Leandro is just coming back from Tour de San Luis down in Argentina. Big race for him. UCI 2.1 race, I believe. He was down there with a guy we saw in the KISS Super League, Dunn, and you know, some real talent in that race as well. So he might be recovering from that. You know, he might still have some sore legs. You know, I looked up for this Stockbro. It's on Stow, 1-year-old pro rider out of Denmark, and he's got some solid results here. Fifth in the Denmark National Road Race Championship. He took third in both the U23 road race and time trial. So he might be one to look out for. Kind of you know, pro coming in, maybe not too familiar with the platform. We'll have to see if he's got any Zwift races, but certainly he's got the power to keep up with the Zwift talent on this climb.
That's kind of crazy, like how all of a sudden we've had these announcements of these pro teams showing up. We've had the announcement, you know, obviously of the KISS Community League, KISS Super League, and now it kind of feels like people are coming out of the woodwork here. Like all of a sudden we've got Ingvar Omarsson jumping in here. We've got obviously Leandro, who's been a major part of, you know, Zwift racing out here for the last months, the last year or so. Now all of a sudden we've got Stockbro, Alex West is up in here. You know, I think the level of the mixture of the community with the in real life pro elite classes, it's really starting to just show up and show that this is the real deal, Greg. You know, this is really, as far as, you know, you've always had this questioning. You know, are these guys who are showing up on an online platform, nobody knows who they are, what's going on here? But now you just start mixing them together. You're starting to see how they compete and how they line up against each other and how the results end up. It's really starting to verify everything for, I think, for the reality of Zwift racing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, things are changing really fast. I mean, you know, we're getting pros on the platform, and they're bringing both talent to the platform, but also like tons of enthusiasm. I've been really impressed with how enthusiastic the Ribble team has been from KSL about racing on here. You know, one thing that you might be kind of worried about is that, you know, all these pro teams show up on Zwift, and then maybe they're kind of, you know, bored with it. They're used to racing outside with a certain kind of intensity, but it seems like so many of them are just really taking to it and enjoying like a new kind of cycling. You know, they enjoy entertaining us. They enjoy kind of like, you know, being able to interact in real time. So, you know, I think things are really growing fast. But the person I want to point out here is Morten Vang, also in the race, lightweight climber from KISS Racing Team. I believe he's the Norwegian national champion on Zwift, so he's another guy to look out for as well.
Yeah, Morten Vang. Usually, you know, I've seen him win quite a few sprints as well. You know, one of those that we would call almost the Vikings coming from those Norse countries here. And, you know, I always am watching out for Vang whenever he shows up. Super strong rider here. We did have a little attack from the Dart, as well as Dan Fleeman, ex-pro rider here from Dig Deep Coaching out of the UK. Fleeman gave a little dig off the front. This is only the first quarter or so of the climb here. They got a little bit of a gap. It was 3 or 4 seconds. Didn't go much of anywhere. And now the pack coming back. Talk about the climb a little bit here. It undulates a lot. Is there drafting on this climb? Look at how things are happening, though, here. I mean, look at the break already here. I mean, it is really starting to turn into a situation where can you hold on to the wheels, as well as there's just a reality on the 5% gradient, and you just gotta kind of have to suffer through it. Kind of a threshold effort at this point, but there are some sections where you can draft. It seems like at least a little bit and get an advantage, and it looks like they're just looking for these wheels here. What kind of climb is this? How are the riders going to be tackling this, Greg?
Yeah, you know, this climb is it's not too steep as far as average gradient goes, 5.4%. So there's a lot of sections where these riders can draft each other, but there are some pitchy sections of the climb that kind of come throughout, and one kind of comes right near the end of the climb. There's probably 3 or 4 pitchy sections. So, this almost turns into a little bit of an interval, climb during a race like this. Riders are really going to attack these pitches, like they're going through one right now, 10% pitch. They kind of attack these pitches, and then they'll settle down for the drafty sections because no one wants to be on the front for those sections. So the pace will come down a little bit there, unless someone like Poison Dart decides to attack there, or someone like Lionel Vujasin, who's known to be a very strong, like attacky kind of climber, sort of like in the vein of, like the riders from Movistar. That I think that's how it's going to go down here, but it looks like they're taking it pretty steady so far, pretty big pack together.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely a little bit of whole hand. Well, the initial split looked like it was really causing some suffering. If we do look back just a little bit, we are seeing Grimshaw hanging on the back here. Jeffrey Creel, the South African national champion of Zwift. Looking through here, Quentin Muellers is hanging on here from the Cycling Hub as well team, newly launched team in the last couple of months here as well. That's really starting to show up, and I think also I did see some announcements about them being focused on the KISS Community League too, with some big hitters jumping in there. But this is the gap here to the Chase Group. Really, the Chase Group is trying to figure itself out here, it looks like still, with it just kind of in a strangle mold, straight line, just trying to find that wheel right in front of you at this point to grab a wheel rather than even maybe be able to come around and close the gap down at this point. It looks like this is said and done with that 11-12 seconds here. We are seeing Classic here out of Canada, 169 beats per minute, 470 watts, trying to get back onto the group here. Buckled there as well in almost a panic mode. It's the top 40 now, it looks like, going with the lead group. Speaking of Lionel Vujasin, I always get that. You have to correct me every single time on that. Vujasin. Lionel here with that Canyon name and the Canyon kit in game. Something new's going on here, and this is pretty interesting. If you haven't seen the announcements already, there has been a new team launch, and Claudia Barron, I do see your comment there, and I will get to that in just a moment because that is a important point about the broadcast coverage. I'll get right to that in just a second. But something we definitely want to chat about here just for a moment here is the Canyon ZCC, a new generation team. This is a semi-pro elite team that's launched specifically for racing out on Zwift within the community league, as well as some other races here. The new men's team, let's go ahead and see if we can bring that up here as well here. Steve Young, James Phillips, Lionel Vujasin, and Philip Diner. And then for the women's team, we're seeing Eva Buchholz here, Laura Van Reagan Morto, as well as Siri Hildonen and Natalie Eklund here. So really cool announcement here. Let's go ahead and see what Lionel had to say before the broadcast here. This was an interview that was done right before from Lionel's trainer, actually, with no other than Greg Leo.
So Lionel, tell me a little bit about your new team, Canyon ZCC. How did this get started? Who's on the team? And what does ZCC stand for?
Canyon tried to be a step forward than the other brands, so they tried to set up an e-racing team. As you probably know, they're about on every kind of discipline of cycling, with road cycling, mountain bike, even fixed gear sometimes. So e-cycling and Zwift, it's the normal step, next step, I would say. So they try to group some specialists, some indoor specialists, like you say normally, to try to create a new structure and try to make the sport better and try to help the discipline to grow. And yeah, the project is really nice and the project is really ambitious. It's only a small start from now, because with the KISS Community League, we try to hurry up, and maybe the team is still not 100% ready, but it's gonna come really soon, and you will have more information about what we're gonna do and what we have to say about the project later.
Well, that's awesome. We're really looking forward to watching you guys race. So tell me, what does CCC stand for?
Yeah, actually, it's still kind of a mystery, even for us. Maybe you have to ask our DS race hour. I would say it's normally Zwift Cycling Club or something like this. But yeah, the good thing with that, it's really focused on Zwift racing, and yeah, I'm really happy to stay on this platform because yeah, as you said, we are a community, and there are really involved also in the community, and we want to be involved in the community. So yeah, let's say it's Zwift Cycling Club for the moment.
Got it. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, and good luck in the race today.
So, looking at the new team, we're looking at Lionel out on course right now. They've got the Canyon kit in game. They've also got some kit in real life, it sounds like. We'll hear some more about how that's going down. So, real life sponsorship starting to take place through Zwift Racing with new team launch here, specifically around the Community League. Pretty cool development there coming from Canyon. The support of the community, support of the racing here out on Zwift. Really cool to see. And we did see some shuffling around. You know, there isn't an official federation or anything at this point that's actually able to police where people are going, and there's no draft or anything, but there was definitely some shuffling around in the teams, Greg, you know, heading into this race. We'll get into that in a minute, though, because we got a couple of attacks here, actually. Cryogen is off the front with S. Maris here. Hug is there as well, coming from Innovation here at 180 beats per minute. Alex West looking to chase that down from the Canyon team with a couple of his, no teammates along with him, actually. Alex West, the team, Zwift Academy finalist from 2018, absolutely demolishing it here out of New Zealand for the Canyon ZCC team. Dan Fleeman from Dig Deep Coaching here, held on to the wheel. It looks like 7.8 watts per kilogram coming from him here. Lampier from Wahoo CH there, jumping on as well. It looks like Lavarek there, also from Wahoo CH there, which is Wahoo Cycling Hub. That was the team we were talking about. I believe a lot of these riders actually from the Wahoo Cycling Hub. I believe that's what that stands for. Newer team. I believe most of them are streaming over on YouTube. Probably tons of viewers hanging out over there watching this climb up to the top of this Innsbruck course climb here. Alex here closing things down. This looks like a break that actually can make something happen here. There's enough big hitters in here. This might be the moment of truth for who's going to win, I think, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking.
we were born for greatness. We're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. We're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. They say that I'm reckless because I'm relentless. They spit on my face and crush on my name and taking my life in vengeance. Yeah, you can try and blame us and try and take what's sacred, but we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. Somebody sound the alarm. The fire was set in the dark. It's time that you know. No, we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. It doesn't matter if the world is gone mad, if we just hold on, if we just hold on, yeah. The sky is falling and the world is gone mad, and we sing our songs and we just hold on, yeah. So if you're running, stop running. One life, one chance, start living. Sing it louder just to let the world know. No, we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. We're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. No, we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. Somebody sound the alarm. It's time that you know. It doesn't matter if the world is gone mad, if we just hold on, if we just hold on, yeah. Sing it louder just to let the world know. No, we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. No, we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. No, we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. We were born for greatness. No, we're not nameless, we're not faceless, we were born for greatness. I don't know what you had in mind, but here we stand on opposing sides. Let's go to war. Let's go to war.
Faster and faster going downhill. And what it seems like is the fastest way to get a group downhill is to have riders like repeatedly surge up to the front with like a big power, basically spike their power up, and then get into the arrow tuck as quickly as possible and just kind of rotate through that, almost like a rotating pace line, but with much sharper efforts, almost like sprint type efforts. That can really drive the pace downhill. And of course, if you have some bigger riders in the group, you kind of want to put them on the front, when possible. So, there definitely is there's a little bit of a skill to getting down hills as quickly as possible in Zwift. You don't get the feedback like you do outside, so it's kind of you have to kind of read it by looking at the screen, looking at your speed, and looking at the gaps to the riders in front of you.
Interesting. So the whole it isn't necessarily about. And I noticed this in Zwift. It's not necessarily about the continual power on the front when you're playing like in a domestique situation or a situation where you're working for your team. You take your pull at the front, and it's usually a 30-second to 1-minute situation. Especially in these downhill situations, it seems it's all about driving a quick burst to the front, carry that speed forward with the draft that you gain, and back it off right away, and just continually shoot off the front like that with that power. It sounds like almost using the draft to increase the speed from behind over and over and over again. And once that speed's on the front, it just starts snowballing itself.
Yeah, that seems right. This is kind of like what I talk about with the emergent properties of the Zwift physics. So, it's a simulation of reality.
The Zwift physics, everybody. The professor is in the house. We need to put an acronym on that. There's going to be a whole board that we'll do. That'll be a part of the ZCL show.
Got to get some
that
books
we have
behind me
up.
here.
The emergent properties. Say that one more time. We need that. We need that comment one more time. And what are we going to label that one? The emergent properties of physics. There we go.
Dude, yeah, I got to get back to with the whiteboard behind me. We need some new assets for that. Let me hit with some facts about the emergent properties of the ZWIFT physics. What I was saying was, this is kind of like a simulation of reality, but there are details about how how the riders interact with each other, how the draft works, that make it so that the things that work outside don't necessarily work the same on ZWIFT. And so it's constantly a matter of experimenting with what the best way to ride on ZWIFT is, and that's an interesting thing. That's what makes being an indoor specialist a separate discipline, and we're seeing that in his Super League with how well the community riders are doing. They're able to keep up with the pro riders, win and animate the race with even not using as much power as the pros, and it's because they sort of maybe subconsciously or consciously through experimentation have learned about all of these details of how to ride well in the ZWIFT universe.
Yeah, right on. So it looks like the group here is not able to drive the pace quite fast enough. This 38 seconds, though, I think, Greg, is going to come down pretty quickly once things level out, a little bit here. This speed is going to be carried fairly quickly into the flat sections, and I have a feeling it will get closed down to about 10 to 15 seconds here. Then it's going to be all about playing the domestique on the front. Then it's going to be all about driving the pace if they're able to work together. Now, here's the thing. Not many teams, though, that are involved in the chase here that could really work together. It's more of a solo effort here from a lot of these riders that just have to kind of look at each other and say, we might not be on the same team here, but we've got the same goal. We need to close this down or it's all said and done for us.
Yeah, for sure. And, the thing is, those guys behind are going to have the motivation to get up front, right? They're going to have the motivation and the drive to organize a little bit and get up to the front of the group. Whereas the guys in the front of the group are probably thinking to themselves, okay, we dropped all these guys behind, on the first time up this climb. We'll be able to do it again on the second time up the climb. There's no reason for us to really drive it at this point and waste our energy. There's no reason for them to organize, try to push the pace, because they're probably thinking that, right? Like, we've already dropped them. We'll just do it again on the next climb. And whether that's real or not, I guess we'll see on the second climb. It could very well be that some of these riders behind, Gavin Dempster, Trzynski, and so forth, even Lionel, have been just reserving their energy a little bit for that second climb.
I would not be surprised one bit if that were the truth here. Gavin Dempster here, winner of the KISS Europe Sprint Series and the final. This is a rider to watch out for, that's for sure. Now, he's got a solid sprint. I'm not sure about the climb up against the likes of some of these other riders here, but this is a rider, this is, again, we're talking about a lot of the cream of the crop here. Here's the sections I was talking about, though. They came in the flat. They had plenty of speed. They closed it down in about 15 seconds. Now it's when they got to put the work in. They look to be getting organized here. Lionel here on the front here from Canyon ZCC. Trzynski from Team Poland there is jumping on the front now. Now Team Drafts. Gavin Dempster here. Now being a part of Team Draft here, is I haven't seen Gavin involved too much in any of the any of the bigger races recently here. Any plans for Gavin? If he's got anything going on here? I mean, being a winner of the London event, he's definitely a rider to watch out for. With as far as team draft goes, what's happening within the team, and what are the plans coming into the community league and things like that?
Well, I know for sure that Gavin is probably gearing up for the British National Championship. In fact, I know for sure he's been training hard for that. The qualifier for that coming up at the end of February here, along with the other national championships. This is an opportunity for Gavin to win an official national championship jersey through British Cycling. So I know that's definitely on his radar and something he's been training for, along with a bunch of the other UK riders on the scene. So my guess is that's his focus right now. And probably this race and the SCR series he was just in are things that have been preparing him for that.
Yeah, that's those national championships coming up here are going to be a huge deal. For those of you who don't know what Greg's talking about here, a lot of recent announcements coming through. Specifically, the first one that we saw was with British Cycling. now being involved directly with the Zwift National Championships, needing to have a license and having that coming down. I mean, that's a really cool development here now, though, where, you know, we get some more verification, we get an elevation of the racing out on Zwift again. Speaking of, though, the racing here, we do see that 2-second gap's going to quickly come right on down. This group has gotten organized. Are they going to, you know, what, the question is leading into this climb now. We've got 14, 15 racers at the front end of this pack now, of this race now. We've got Sabara here now, along with Connellan, it looks like. Oh, no, excuse me, Sabara and Klassen here on the chase, both out of Canada here. We'll give them some ride-ons for amazing efforts here to try and close things down. 19K into this 47K race from what I saw on the power. Connellan there with Chevelle now. A few others might be able to get back on terms here. Jeff DeCreo, South African national champion, won that, I believe, in a sprint type race. Not exactly the race that we're seeing out here today, that's for sure, but still sitting in the top 30 here amongst some of the strongest races we know about on Zwift. So Creel here trying to work together, it looks like, to at least form a nice chase group. But the lead group at this point holding down a solid 16 riders now. Ingvar on the back here, the in real life Icelandic multi-discipline national champion right now, 163 beats per minute. Maybe, you know, for Ingvar here, maybe up front it was just a little bit too much of the skill situation and didn't know where to be when. I did see him using the arrow power up a little early on here, or maybe perhaps it's in, I know his training schedule is most likely in a base period right now, as his focus is going to be on World Cups and on the mountain bike specifically, as well as a few USA races. Me and him were chatting a little bit early, you know, going into his training season here. So perhaps not the high-end fitness that some of these indoor specialists are going to have here, but FD Evola here now coming out of Belgium here, coming right on through. Talbot Splunk now from Splunk now coming through as well. It looks like they were able to get rid of Ingvar actually, who I thought might be the dark horse out here today, but it looks like the pace is just maybe a little too high in the front here. Hug has been putting out some crazy numbers from Innovation out of Switzerland, 182 beats per minute. He's kind of just stuck it at that like 180 plus actually. I think he's kind of just been like, whatever, I'm going to ride my pace most of the time today, and it's really caused some suffering, I think, in the group, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the power for the guys in the, in this front group, and a lot of them have averaged over 5 watts per kilogram for the entire race so far, and that includes the flat section at the beginning. So this has been pretty tough, and a hug from the Innovation team has certainly put out a lot of power, 5.3 watts per kilogram for this race. I imagine he was near 6.0 for a lot of that first climb. So a lot of these guys are going to be pretty tired. But you know, that group that held back and came together on the downhill, they might have a little bit extra for that sprint. You know, but I think. Save his energy like he did on the last climb. I think he's a threat as well, and we shouldn't rule out Gavin. Gavin also an all-around rider with a strong kick. So you know, I think those are kind of some of the favorites, but really it's anyone's game here. And with the pro Icelander Ingvar, you know, we haven't seen him a lot on Zwift. I don't see a lot of his numbers. He could very well have a strong sprint as well.
Yeah, we are seeing some chatter coming through here about what's going to be happening here. Let's get some predictions going on. I see Twitch, I see Facebook, I see YouTube as well, all giving different predictions, actually. CMD over on YouTube letting us know it's going to be all about the second climb. I have a feeling we might see a serious break here. I think you're right on the money there, CMD, that's for sure. We're seeing also a little bit of chatter here. Go Gavin here coming from Matt Gardner, another fellow teammate of Draft as well. Where is Messineo? That is a great question. What happened to Messinil? Matt Looker, I did see a little bit of a chatter in there as well about Looker. I think had a dropout today. So without Leandro up in here, without Looker up in here, what is going on? A couple other, there's definitely a couple that have fallen off the pace here today that we would have expected to be involved here. Zach Rogers here saying it's going to be all about the Vyusin fan club, Vyusin fan club here. And then Louis Dinsdale coming in with a little bit of the 6-6 up in here, and crazy numbers so far. Lots of chatter here. Who do you think is going to take the W? I don't care who wins. Victor's saying as long as the Vision Rider here with a couple of Twitch emojis here. Sandbike here coming from B here. Alex West will unleash. We're hearing from the vegan Porsche up in the house. And we're hearing that Leandro had to leave from Joan Gravdell here. Thanks for letting us know. Leandro had a prior engagement, we're hearing from Scott. So thanks a lot for letting us know what's going on with the riders that we are. And we're also hearing Samuel here. James Joseph Bars letting us know that he thinks Samuel from Innovation is going to be taking it down. Thanks a lot for all those predictions out here. We'll be watching out for more. Gann from Dempster for the win. I would, I'm kind of favoring the Dempster out here to just dumpster everybody else in the sprint. We'll have to see what's going to happen if he can start that fire.
I remember, I think we did a cast. It was on the Epic KOM, and it was a situation just like this. Gavin hung back for the climb. He was in a group back just like he was here. He reserved his energy, and then he had one of the most well-timed sprints that I've seen in a long time. I wish I could remember what race that was. He's a clever rider who's got a lot of experience and a lot of talent. So he's never one to discount.
Yeah, Dempster super smart when it comes to the Zwift racing. Very, he might not have 300 or 400. Maybe he does have 300 or 400, but I don't think he's got the numbers of like a Casey Shum or something like that when it comes to, the number of races out on Zwift. But the ones he does jump into, he shows up to take the W out there. So I'll be watching out for Dempster to perhaps grab the W out here today. Again, I can't speak enough about Ingvar, though. Still being involved here. He jumped back onto the back of the pack here. We'll have to see if he's got the fitness, though, to make it up over the top. It's going to be all about this climb here. We've got one pack, so that was hanging back. Let's talk a little bit about the watts per kilogram that have been used up so far, though. What kind of efforts? That front pack, do we see a difference in what the front pack threw down? That those who were involved in that initial break of about like 8 riders or so, able to be in there, and then the pack that had to chase them down. What kind of efforts have been put out here? I mean, I'm seeing crazy numbers actually so far, up in the 5.0 watts per kilogram for a few of these riders. Ingvar Omerson there, with 5.0 right now. Lionel up in there with 4.7. Peter Chuzinski there hanging out at a 4.8. Who's best? David Talbot, Splunk, the smartest racer amongst them. 4.6 watts per kilogram so far.
And he's also a lightweight rider. Normally you expect the lighter weight riders have to put out a higher watt per kilogram, power to weight ratio in order to go the same speed as the other riders. So two riders that weigh, a heavier rider going up a climb at the same power to weight ratio, the heavier rider is going to move a little bit faster. So we would expect actually David to have put out at, one of the lightest riders in this group at 58.5 kilogram. In fact, the lightest rider in this group. We would sort of expect him to have to put out more power to weight ratio than the others, and yet he's put out the least. So I would say of this front group, he's definitely the freshest. Now, the thing about David is he's a pure climber. His 15-second power is not like Gavin's or Sam Bike's or Alex West's. So if he's going to win this, he's going to have to probably get away or be a lot fresher than the others at the end.
That's super light rider. He's coming in, amongst the rest of the riders here, 58.5 kilograms. David Talbot, actually, from Team Splunk. So, needs to make the break happen on the climb. He's going to have to put in a full-on, everything you got kind of effort. Kind of like what we saw with Ed Hopper in the KSL week number 2. If he wants to get away, it's got to be an all-in effort. Everything he's got. Gain about 40 seconds to a minute, maybe even more than that on the climb. I'm not sure that's even possible amongst this group. Do you think he's got that kind of a 20-minute up against the likes of Alex West? I think some of these riders have a 20-minute that can match even somebody who's 58.5 kg.
Oh yeah, he's definitely in there with the sort of the the best in this group in terms of his 20-minute power at 5.8. That's the best we've seen from him. But there are several riders at that or more who have a very good sprint. I mean, Alex West's best 20-minute power is 6.0, and he can do almost a 16 watt per kilogram sprint. So Alex has definitely got the 20-minute, got the sprint, and that's why he's sitting on near the top, maybe at the top of the race rankings right now. He can sort of do it all.
Yeah, I mean, Alex West definitely, he's been, in the last year, I think Alex West amongst the racing community has been just kind of a breakout, especially, I mean, being a part of the Zwift Academy finalists, showing up and taking the top 3 situation in the, in the Alpe Zwift climb, or part of the Zwift Academy finalists.
Right.
I mean, just, and now being a part of the KISS Super League on the Zwift Academy Dream Team. I mean, it's definitely been a standout year for Alex, and now being a part of the new Canyon team. I mean, what a year for somebody. And this is a story that we should talk about actually a little bit. This is kind of the this is kind of the dream, story of what Zwift is creating for this new opportunity within the racing genre to show what you got, to show up, show that what you got is real, and throw down that power to become a part of the the elite and pro peloton and be racing amongst them through this Zwift platform. On the Zwiftcast, in the last episode, we were chatting about this, the reality that the All-Stars and the Zwift Academy Dream Team were doing such a good job against the pros, and I said, of course they are. Why there's this whole idea, that the pro peloton is something other, right? And there's just a reality that there's a lot of people with the genetic ability out there that don't ever see the opportunity. And now we have people from all over the world, all the flags on the right-hand side of the course, that right-hand side of the screen right now, all coming together on an online platform, being able to mix them up, making things a little bit more of a little bit closer, flattening out the world a little bit, shrinking the world a little more and more and more for everybody to come together and be able to really show what they got amongst each other. Of course, we're going to get riders, out of the statistics of all the people who are out there that can compete amongst these kind of high-level professional racers that just never saw that opportunity. I think Alex West is kind of like the quintessential example of somebody coming up into this racing scene.
Yeah, and I know. I mean, that's his exact plan. He's stepped away from racing outdoors, and he's made racing on Zwift and sort of trying to be recognized as one of the top esports athletes, one of the top esports cyclists, one of his goals. And it's not only about racing hard and staying fit and improving your numbers throughout the season, but he's also active in the community. He's actively trying to prove the legitimacy of his power and things like that. He's involved in the Zwift transparency movement, which means he's weighed in live to prove his weight. He's also done the same for his power output by racing live during the Zwift Academy. And so he's kind of attacking, becoming one of the top esports cyclists from all facets, both from improving his visibility as a community member and also his visibility as a racer.
Yeah, it's a really cool announcement that we did see that he was stepping away from the racing in real life just to focus completely on what he's got going on here with the Canyon team as well as the Zwift Academy Dream Team in the KSL here. Speaking of Alex West, he is launching attack onto the climb here as we do get going here for the final climb into this last lap here. Currently first place out on course, 179 beats per minute, 500 watts. Brandlin now closing things right on down to him. Dan Fleeman trying to follow this up, ex-pro racer here coming into the wheels, grabbing that drafting power up here to try and hang on. Cryogen's up in here as well with Merritt here, and I believe Dig Deep Coaching Fleeman is on Cryogen as well. I think he just doesn't have it in the name here, as he is in the Tour de Pure kit that they are using. I did see a little bit of chatter in the chat about that. Lampier here now following it right on up as well. Hug trying to get on terms, it looks like here. Might be able to make this a group of 6 here, but Laverick here from Wahoo Cycling Hub, 179 beats per minute, and looks to be closing it down and able to hang on. But Alex West with an incessant pace on the front here. We were seeing a little bit of chatter there about, well, Frank Deal, as we do have these attacks going off the front, talking about the genre of racing that we are a part of, would be kind of a part of that chatter you are bringing into this in a short race. Well, there are plenty of pro racers that race very short races in disciplines that are definitely just as elite, I would say. You know, it's not Tour de France World Tour type elite, I guess. And so amongst the pros that are the elite of the elite pros, you definitely need to get into some World Tour 6-hour plus stuff. But there's definitely genres out there, though, as well, Frank Deal, that have much shorter races. Speaking of cyclocross worlds, which I know you're really into, did happen just recently. So maybe we do have a few disciplines out there amongst the pros as well that these racers are able to jump into. And maybe one day we will have 6-hour races out on Zwift. I'm not sure that's going to be happening anytime soon, but World Tour out on Zwift with 6 hours. I think it's a little more interesting, though, to have these shorter races out here, though, that's for sure. Now, the attacks are on, though, and Hug able to counter it there. Alex, with that was a risky move so early, though. Will he be able to hang on? Looks like he settled in a little bit at 174 here, Greg. I think he might be okay here. It doesn't look like it's put him too far over the top of his threshold, and it at least was able to drop a few of the threats off. As we were talking about Gavin Dempster, a lot of people in the chat were saying the smartest racer perhaps amongst them might be able to pull this off with a sprint here, but he's got to close it down now, and I think that might have been Alex's goal, is just kind of whittle this down a little bit, not really drop everybody off.
Yeah, I think, you know, Alex's physiology is he's got a lot of what you might call high-end energy, right? So he can go over his threshold repeatedly. In fact, his ability to climb quickly at 6.0 watts per kilogram for 20 minutes, a lot of that is that high-energy component, right? So he can do these kind of yo-yo-y attacks up a hill and settle back down, maybe just like right below his threshold. So, you know, he's the kind of guy who can do these over-unders and recover and you know, still continue to attack. So that probably didn't put him on the back foot too much. You know, he knows his body well, and you know, I don't think he would have attacked there if he thought that that was going to kind of sabotage the rest of the climb for him.
I love the comments coming through here from Frank Deal about MVDP. Absolutely love it. Classic sugar burner, we're saying about what you're talking about there with from Nike DMT. I think you're right about that when it comes to Alex West. He is definitely a classic, you know, able to go up and over the top there over and over again. We have seen a lot of attacks from him. A very animated rider in the races. So was able to get this gap here, and it's kind of the same racers again. So you might have been right in, you know, the situation that we saw earlier. You know, we dropped them once, we'll drop them again. It looks like that's kind of taking place as Dempster, Truzinski, Diavolo off the back there. It looks like Kunskin not going to hang on. Talbot, who we thought was going to be one of the strongest climbers with the super lightweight, too much for him as far as the race goes out here today for the longer race. This is usually about when these races finish. We're only into the second climb, actually. This is one of the longer races that we'll see out on, you know, 47K is what I've got over at ZWIFT.PL. We're going to end up at the sprint, actually, along the finish line. Up and over the top of the leg snapper through the sprint, and then into the finish line, I believe. So plenty of racing left to go here. One of the longer races that you'll ever see here in a KISS race. Attacks are still on. Alex West again going 627 watts here. Brandlin now following up, and I think this is his plan. To attack, see who stays with, come back in the threshold, and then go over again. Sit in, see who comes with him, go over again. Classic, you know, World Tour stage winning type stuff here with this longer race out here. You know, that's kind of the way you make this happen when it comes to these longer climbs if you want to win them. You attack, push them over the threshold, and then come right back to where you can steadily hold without them being able to fully recover.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching, you know, Valverde basically try to do this to Froome, you know, during the Tour de France. You know, Froome is a guy who wants to climb steady. A guy like David Talbot who just wants to, he can climb like hell. Well, okay, he can climb very well, but he wants to climb steady. Whereas Alex West is so punchy. I think Alex West is probably after trying to drop Brandland here. That's my guess is who is most on Alex's radar at this point. He knows Brandland has a big sprint, and so, you know, like Lionel Vujasin says, if you want to win the race, you have to be prepared to lose. And I think that's what Alex West is doing here. He's trying to drop Sandbike because he doesn't want to bring him into the finish.
It's a really good point, actually. Sandbike being the highest ranked rider right next to Alex West, actually, amongst the ZWIFT Power rankings, actually, right now. And I would be watching out for Brandon for sure. Sandbike always a threat out there. Now, Dan Fleeman here still hanging on.
Yep.
And Lewis Whitcomb actually coming over on Twitter. One of our only comments over on Twitter. Something cool if you do not know amongst the viewership. On Twitter, it's the one place that you can include your own media into the broadcast. Go ahead and shoot us a picture over on Twitter. Take whatever you like, your Zwift setup, a recent podium that you got because you're racing out on Zwift and then went into the real life. Whatever it might be, you can bring some sort of media. Only pictures come through. The videos don't play. The GIFs don't usually play. But if you want to do so, go ahead and do so. Thanks a lot, Lewis Whitcomb, for bringing this in. He says, Dan Fleeman is an absolute mental rider. Well, absolute. Absolute, probably the a little bit more mental version of absolute rider there. And I think he will win with ease. So we'll have to see if Fleeman's going to make that happen. So far, you may be proven correct out here, Lewis, because Fleeman's hanging on to the wheel here. Brandon as well as Alex West pretty well, closes it right on down. He's a part of a group of 4. Innovation with 2 riders in there. We do see Cryogen able to make it with Dan Fleeman. Then Alex West from the New Canyon ZCC team here, still trying to break things apart. Doesn't look like it's going to be happening anytime soon amongst these 4 riders. They are motivated here. Laverick here now. Who is this rider with this badge? Can you help me out here, Greg? This is a rider on that new Wahoo Cycling Hub team. I believe maybe a part of the streaming that's going on right now over on YouTube. With the, I saw Cycling Hub had like a post over in Zwift Racers talking about all the individual riders that were going to be giving us their on-board look at the race today. Do we know who Laverick is here from Wahoo CH? Because he's got a verified badge next to his name.
Yeah, Ed Laverick. So let's see. He's from the ZWIFT Carbon UK Pro Cycling team. I don't know too much more about him than that, but I know he's got an incredible 1 minute power in like the 10-11 watt per kilogram region. So very powerful rider.
A track cyclist perhaps coming along with Pritchard. It might be. I wouldn't be surprised because Chris Pritchard is riding for that same team. If he's got a couple of his buddies coming on through and racing right alongside them. I wouldn't be former UK national hill climb champ. We're hearing from Greg Van Stravamar. Thank you so much, Greg. I appreciate that. Look, that's where chat comes in and just makes the broadcast that much better. Greg, really appreciate that. So he is, that is, as far as Zwift racing goes, that's got to be one of the best disciplines to race out on Zwift to come from, with as far as experience goes. In order to try and win these races. I mean, hill climbing like that all in, it's essentially everything you got for like 1 to 5 minutes or something like those hill climbs, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and actually, I'm looking at the Facebook chat, and they're telling us that that Laverick was on JLT with Bibby and Mould and those guys. So he's maybe that's where he picked up Zwift racing from as well. We know those JLT guys who are now on Madison Genesis, and we're seeing week in, week out in the KISS Super League are super into Zwift. Yeah. And so he's probably got plenty of experience on Zwift as well. Looking at his Zwift Power profile, he's got a lot of races here. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, 36 races out on Zwift, lots of podiums, lots of wins. So definitely a rider to watch out for.
And as we speak about him, obviously a little bit of motivation in the legs there as he closes things down at 190 beats per minute here. Bronlin now is the wheel that he's going to be grabbing onto. Makes it a group of 5. Merritt, though, from Cryogen, not quite able to follow the wheel there of the ex-JLT rider here. So Cryogen off the back a little bit. Do have 1 rider up front with Fleeman here. We'll see if they can get 2 and take on the likes of the 2 riders up front that are part of Innovation here as they do come by our gameplay rider here out on course. Now, 8.4 watts per kilogram here come from Merritt here. Does grab back onto the back of this pack here. We've got a group of, what do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 riders now in and amongst this pack. And it looks like that might be what it is unless West again up and over the top into those orange numbers here. Absolutely popping here. 171 beats per minute. We know he can go up into the high 170s actually when he really kicks over the top of his threshold. He was just waiting for that moment. Laverick and the rest that got back on terms. The moment they're there looking for that reprieve again. Alex West strikes on the front end of this pack here. 177 beast per minute, 500 watts here. How much longer do they got here? They're almost to the finish line. If we look here, or not the finish line, but to the KOM banner here. It's almost in sight. They're going to go through this village here. It's going to flatten out a little bit, and it's going to be almost, a high speed across that KOM. But
Yeah.
this is a brave move. You've got 5 riders that have proven to be extremely talented when it comes to just pure power. And Alex is just trying to break it apart and go solo at this point. He's going to have to hold 5.5 to 6 watts per kilogram over the top, absolutely suffer near to 180, I think, or so, in order to hold on to this. But he's breaking them, it looks like. It looks like he's actually made it happen.
Yeah. Well, it could be. I think probably what's going on with Alex here is he sees that KOM banner coming up, and he knows the suffering's almost over, and that kind of gives you a second wind to some extent. You see it coming. You got that downhill, and it sometimes gives you a little bit extra energy. So he's probably banking on that right now, and just trying to put a little extra hurt into Sandbike. He might be figuring right now there's a lot of time before the finish line, so even if this doesn't stick, it's going to be putting a little bit of sore into the riders from Innovation's legs. It's going to be sapping some of that sprint power. So that might be what Alex is trying to do. He's trying to leverage his fitness a little bit to take away some of the strengths of the other riders, and that's really what you have to do. He knows these riders well. He knows what they're good at, and he knows how he can leverage his strengths against them.
Yeah, that's a really good point here as far as kind of loosen up the legs there, making sure that the other riders do not have too much left when it comes down to the sprint here. Hug here as well as Brownland here, really starting to close things down. Innovation getting organized on the front end of this race. Now Fleeman, though, sitting in and taking full advantage of what's happening here. Fleeman might get the free ride up to Westy's wheel, up to Alex West's heel, actually, and he might be the best position now tactically if he can hang on to the wheels here of Innovation, hold on to the Innovation wheels, and then take it down in the sprint. I would not be surprised one bit if the smart tactic of Dan Fleeman does pay off in the finish here. Alex West here still, though, up and out of the saddle. 179 beats per minute, holding on to a solid 10 seconds here. They were able to drop off at Laverick there as well as Merritt there. Lampier here, it looks like 111 back here, not going to be able to be involved. Was dropped off a little bit earlier. Looks like Bjørsen along with Ingvar Ormerson, the Icelandic national champion, trying to hold on to the wheel here. They'll still get a top 10. It's going to be a battle for the spots there in the top 10 between these riders here. Truzinski just barely hanging on. Dempster there, we said, was one of the favorites to take this down, but was unable to hold on, and they've opened up over a minute up over the top with those attacks there. And with Alex West continually driving that pace and not just making it consistent, that's really what opens up these time gaps on a climb like this, is when you have those continual orange numbers attack. Those turn in about 10 seconds or so, and you're not slowing down after them. They're not looking at each other. They're holding hands after them. They go right back into a steady, a very steady pace that's about threshold every time.
Yeah, one thing those little attacks can do is they can kind of get to you mentally. When you get off the back of a group going up a hill, everything in your body is telling you just to give up. And so if you get any little gap, your mind might use that as an excuse just to say, like, okay, let's pull the plug now. Kind of like one of the most amazing things about Chris Froome is his ability to continue to ride steady even when a rider would open up a gap like this on him, right? So like even if someone like Alex West was attacking off the front, he would just stick to his steady climbing and power up those hills. So it could be that this group back, maybe they get the little gaps, and it's sort of like, this has been a tough race, let's just pack it in. We'll ride a little bit easier than we might have otherwise. So that's probably part of what's responsible for that minute gap at this point, because those are some very talented climbers in that group back.
It's all said and done. The motivation's no longer there. I'm going to beat the guys who are next to me. These guys are gone.
Right.
Why waste the effort to chase them down? But look at Pro League so far now. 13 watts per kilogram coming from Hug because he sees the threat. Canyon's off the front, looking to take their first win. ZCC looking to take their first win in one of our ZCL broadcasts here. Absolutely dominating off the front, but he's the only one involved in this front group at this point. Alex West, all the chips are on the table. He gets caught. I'm not sure it's going to happen if he does.
Yeah, what'll be interesting to see is when they're going downhill like this, which of the two teams are going to take up the chase? So, is it going to be Innovation? Is it going to be Cryogen? At this point, Laverick is actually looking like he's in the catbird seat. He doesn't have a teammate here to work for him. He can kind of just sit back and let one of these other teams sort of figure it out. Innovation is probably working for Sandbike at this point. And Cryogen is probably working for Fleeman, who's got a pretty strong sprint. So we'll see whether Simon or Nicky Hug takes up the chase. It looked like Hug was doing that a little bit, hitting it up to 13 watts per kilogram just to try and raise the pace of that group as they were going downhill.
They're right there, Drake. They're right there. They are hunting him down. They smell blood in the water. They brought it down to 12 seconds now. They know the second that it flattens out, Alex has to have a little bit of something in the back of his mind going, I don't know if this is going to happen. The doubt starts to seep in a little bit to the legs. The pain is in the legs. Your mind starts going, how can I hold on to this any longer? I'm almost pushing 6 watts a kilogram, and this pack is closing it down at 4.5. The hope starts going out a little bit. Can West make this happen? I think he knows it's done. We see it drop to 3.5 watts per kilogram. I think he's going to maybe put this into the leg snapper or the sprint.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think probably he's packing it in at this point. He's dropped well below 400 watts. He was holding 400 plus a lot of that time downhill, and he's regrouping. So I think he's just going to be thinking, trying to save energy at this point and see if he can take out this sprint. There's still a lot of descent, a lot of flat ground to go. So I think he could very well recover from this and still do well in the sprint, which it kind of makes this a great move for him. He's going to be a little more tired, but he probably put some hurt into the legs of Innovation and Cryogen on that.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, he was holding out a solid over threshold or right around threshold there for a while, but they did have to put in a real effort to close that down. I mean, it was a threat. It wasn't like they could just coast downhill. A lot of times when you make the close on a situation like this in a ZWIFT race, you can coast a little bit. The pack is just going to kind of do the work for you. They had to work for that. It's not like it's all said and done for Alex West here. It looks like he's able to rest up a little bit. They're coming on pretty strong though here. He's got to time this well, or he could find himself using too much energy off the back as they come flying by. 60 kilometers power received from 64, actually 65 here at this 10% gradient though. Now it's about the same here. So it looks like, and actually we're getting a phone call from somebody over on the.
It's Alex.
To close that down. I think Alex is calling me here over on Facebook here. People are, hey guys, you can't call the broadcast, okay? You can't call into the broadcast over on Facebook.
That should be a feature. That'd be awesome.
Feature. We'll try and bring that in as soon as possible, actually. That's a great feature. Thank you so much, actually, to whoever just called, but let's just hold off until we get the invitation there. So now watch. Suddenly I'm going to get like 50 calls on Facebook from everybody who's hanging out in the broadcast. It's my friend at this point. But West here.
Oh, just someone trying to sell you insurance.
West here now.
we're going to be bringing in insurance pitches onto ZCL.
And so West here now getting caught. They still got the leg snapper. They still got the sprint coming up here. Will somebody give it a go? That's going to be the question, actually. 6 riders. Fleeman played it really smart. It looked like Cryogen didn't do a whole lot of work, and I have a feeling that they may be working for Fleeman here. Laverick, though, we were hearing that he's got a solid 1 minute. He could give it a go up and over the top of the leg snapper. We'll have to wait and see. This is a super interesting now situation. 6 up. I wasn't expecting it to be, this situation here. I was not expecting to see a 6 up, final half a lap or so, or not even quarter of a lap here. Merritt here now trying to go now 6.7 watts per kilogram. He's going to need more of an orange numbers though to try and make this happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's up to here. I mean, you see the Innovation rider just sitting on his wheel, having a picnic back there, like he's eating donuts or something. I'm not sure what he's up to. They are getting close to the leg snapper, but at this point, I expect these riders to just sort of be looking at each other they've got enough gap on the group behind. They don't really need to push it here. So I would expect all of these guys are going to be going hard over the leg snapper. I don't really think anything's going to happen there because they're all expecting it. One move I could see potentially working for Laverick with this 1 minute power, almost like that Kilo type rider on the track. You know, he's got power of like a Kilo champion. He could try an early attack before the sprint and just try to hope that Sam Bike and Alex West are just looking at each other, hoping the other one is gonna take up the chase. But then again, with two teams with two riders in it each, there's some domestiques to play. They each have some cards to play. So it's gonna be a tough one going into the finish here. But the great thing about these small groups is it opens up a lot of possibilities for different kind of tactics.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's the thing. Usually on the leg, I might have to, say, I'm not sure. I think something could go on the leg snapper. Only because 42K in. It's a different situation here. We've got an extra 20 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes of racing in the legs at this point. These are going to be and 2 climbs at threshold or over all the way through. If somebody's got enough to dig with and they do not want that sprint situation, they could
Right.
absolutely go. Now the question is, and especially with having Cryogen and Innovation both with the rider, they can just send one, right? I could see Alex West,
Right.
I could see Alex West as well as Laverick sit in and just kind of see what happens. But these two other teams, they could send somebody off the front and not risk too much by doing so up and over the top of the leg snapper here.
Yeah, that's an excellent tactic, especially with 2 riders in a group this small, and not a huge number of teammates around. Sending one rider up the road and forcing the other team's other riders to work to catch them is it's just an easy tactic that that these teams could employ. Realistically, if someone can do it, it's Sam Bike. With an 11 watt per kilogram 1 minute power, he could potentially power away up the leg snapper and try to stay away, force Cryogen to work, force Alex West to work. But that would leave Hug for the sprint, and his sprint isn't that great. So realistically, if they're going to employ that, it probably is Hug that's going to try to go on the leg snapper. And if Cryogen tries this, it's most likely going to be Merritt, because they're probably saving Fleeman for the sprint. So those are 2 guys to look for. I wouldn't expect Alex to do it. At this point, Alex is probably just sitting in and hoping for the best on the sprint. Oh, but there's a feather, so that changes things a little bit.
Yeah, that changes things a lot. Not an arrow power-up. There's also a drafting power-up there from, it looks like, Fleeman. Fleeman did not have an arrow power-up, so that is most likely that the rest of the riders here do have arrow power-ups. Hug with the feather, most likely saying that's really that's my race, whether or not I can use this feather right here. So I'm going to use that at the most opportune time. Opens up a 2-second gap here. He's going to have his teammate Brandlin sitting in, as you can see, at the back of the pack behind here. So it looks like the gap has opened up to about 4 seconds now. Hug has gotten away a little bit. Alex West and Fleeman here chasing things down. 5 seconds is the difference. Hug is all in at this point. And the smartest thing at this point for Brandon to do is to sit in. We said it was a long race. We said that there was going to be a lot of pain in the legs for all of these riders. We are well over an hour in of way up into that threshold, over threshold racing here. And Laverick has fallen off. Ed Laverick, who we said might have the sprint to take this down, has to close this down solo at this point. It's a race between Alex West, Brandlin, and it looks like the likes of Hug here as well now, trying to stay away. West, Brandlin, and Fleeman. Chase group of 3. 1 off the front with and Hug. And then we've got Laverick now. 184 beats per minute. 5.7 watts per kilogram. 5 seconds is the difference between them here. Fleeman now, though, maybe not hanging on. Everybody is just absolutely suffering. Not able to hang on to the attacks that have happened. There's not a lot of energy left in the legs. Now, we are over an hour in. Really at about the 50 to 1 hour mark. All the glycogen in the legs, all the sugar that's stored up in the legs at this kind of an effort is pretty much done. Anybody who hasn't been supplementing at this point is going to be just absolutely taxed. You really, really need some sort of, and this is something that a lot of Zwift racers are not used to, I think, too, is this kind of longer race and supplementing the sugars during the race. So we'll see what's going to take place here in this last couple of kilometers, man. it looks like everybody's just really doing everything they can to hang on. Hug has been caught here. Laverick 7 seconds back. He's got the chance still, but the reality is the counters here, I'm not sure he's going to see the front of this race again. 7 seconds with only a few K to go. It might be said and done for Ed Laverick.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, amazing to, you know, for any of these riders to be in this last group. Absolutely elite power. You know, I think we should probably go check out his stream after this and watch the suffering on his face for that, because man, some big numbers from all these guys. And now it's gonna be interesting here, because we've got you know, basically a 3-up sprint. Hug's not gonna have anything left for this sprint, but he might have a little bit to lead out Sam Bike. Fleeman, he's got a sprint. So you know, this could be interesting. It's basically gonna be 3 up here. Could be some little cat and mouse even. Might see a little esports track race kind of you know, track sprint kind of stuff with guys trying to get the other ones in front of them position. So that's always interesting when it comes down to a sprint this small after a race this long. They start playing games with each other.
You know, we're down into the last K and a half or so here. Alex West here looks really well positioned, in my opinion, even though he is doubled up again. But Laverick's been given, oh, he's got the drafting power up though, but he's been given an opportunity to get back on terms. Maybe he just goes flying back right on by here. But Ed Laverick's in there. He's coming by with speed, actually. He slows down though. Knows that it might be all said and done. Can he recover before the sprint, though? That's going to be the question here. I mean, he doesn't got a whole lot of time left. Hug starts leading it out here, though, for it looks like his teammate. I think Hug's just going to try and drive the pace, keep it high enough, and position Brandlin well. Alex West sitting in, New Zealand rider from the new Canyon ZCC team, looking to take down the win here today. He's been definitely the most aggressive rider, I think, for the day. We'll give him that award for sure from the broadcast here. Brandlin, though, going to the front, trying to be positioned well. It's all about the jump, Greg. It really is sometimes in these shorter sprints.
Yep. Yeah, and especially with the riders, you know, feeling it. I expect one of these guys to go hard with probably.
There it is.
I don't want to do the conversion. Yep.
But there it is now. Glaverick now 12 watts per kilogram. Hug now chasing it down with 14. There's an arrow power up though coming from behind here. Brandon's got one. It looks like Fleeman going very early with her as well. But Alex West, 16 watts per kilogram coming from Alex West. Absolutely flying through now. And Alex West is showing us why he's one of the best up and comers. But no, Brandlin. It's going to be Brandlin with 16 watts per kilogram taking down the likes of Alex West and maybe Fleeman there. We'll have to take a look and see if Fleeman also came on through. I mean, it was right at the line between Fleeman and West there. I mean, Fleeman timed things almost perfectly to come through. Even though he didn't have the higher watts per kilogram, we saw that Fleeman had a solid tactic to hang on to the wheel and maybe come right on by West there. Let's take a look at the replay real quick here. I mean, that was a crazy solid sprint all around, but you know, between the riders, look at this here. Here comes Laverick, opens it up, the first one to.
My heart is breaking, hands are shaking, bugs are crawling all over me. My heart is breaking, hands are shaking, bugs are crawling all over me. My head is aching, hands are shaking, bugs are crawling all over me. Son of a bitch, give me a drink. One more night, step with me. Oh, son of a bitch, if I can't get clean, I wanna drink my life away. Hey, son of a bitch, give me a drink. Son of a bitch, this can't be me. Son of a bitch, if I can't get clean, I wanna drink
now on Zwift Power. Have you seen that?
I have. I believe that's for 4.6 or higher for the 95% of your best 25. I think that was kind of a move that KISS made along with this choice change with the recategorization. I think maybe the idea is to sort of separate the guys who were, and gals, I'm not sure, they must have their own A+, who were previously the ZADA certified riders into kind of their own category. Group back.
Or over racing here.
You know, this...
Though for Fleeman also came on through. The first one to come by. So we do have the new...
so a little bit, an hour. Everyone's ranked together.
West, to the top of the legs.
Yeah.
Follow this up, Pro Race. Is this something other, right? And there's just a reality that there's a lot of people with the genetic ability. Just for being able to is completely would be kind of a 170 is definitely Alex.
Well, let's see. He's from these Zwift Carbon UK.
It might be. I wouldn't be surprised because Chris Pritchard is right after
with some
the front here from Canyon ZCC. Tuzinski from Team Poland there is jumping on the front now. Now Team Drafts, Gavin Dempster here. Now being a part of Team Draft here, because I haven't seen Gavin involved too much in any of the any of the bigger races recently here. Any plans for Gavin? If he's got anything going on here? I mean, being a winner of the London event, he's definitely a rider to watch out for. With as far as Team Draft goes, what's happening within the team, and what are the plans coming into the community league and things like that?
Well, I know for sure that Gavin is probably gearing up for the British National Championship. In fact, I know for sure what the best way.
When to use the power?
They're going
end of this after West made a little bit of a dig to try and close it down to Dan Fleeman here. Juzinski, it looks like, with Kunskin here, as well as Lionel Yasin here, getting right onto the front, trying to close this back down. This is whether or not they're going to win the race here. The speeds get crazy high at this point. I mean, we've got negative gradients up until I think 17% perhaps, Greg. I mean, they're going to be really flying, and this takes some skill. The tactic about when to use the power to get the most speed, how does that work, Greg? Help me out on what is the most opportune time on those negative gradients to use that power that you have.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, we've been practicing this a little bit. There's a new race out on Zwift called the Outlaw Race, and it's a race down the Alpe du Zwift, kind of a unique thing. And every week we sort of like experiment with how to get faster and faster going downhill. And what it seems like is the fastest way to get a group downhill is to have riders like repeatedly surge up to the front with like a big power, basically spike their power up, and then get into the aero tuck as quickly as possible and just kind of rotate through that, almost like a rotating pace line, but with much sharper efforts, almost like sprint type efforts. That can really drive the pace downhill. And of course, if you have some bigger riders in the group, you kind of want to put them on the front, when possible. So. There definitely is there's a little bit of a skill to getting down hills as quickly as possible in Zwift. You don't get the feedback like you do outside, so it's kind of you have to kind of read it by looking at the screen, looking at your speed, and looking at the gaps to the riders in front of you.
Interesting. So the whole it isn't necessarily about. And I noticed this in Zwift. It's not necessarily about the continual power on the front when you're playing like in a domestique situation or a situation where you're working for your team. You take your pull at the front, and it's usually a 30-second to 1-minute situation. Especially in these downhill situations, it seems it's all about driving a quick burst to the front, carry that speed forward with the draft that you gain, and back it off right away, and just continually shoot off the front like that with that power. It sounds like almost using the draft to increase the speed from behind over and over and over again. And once that speed's on the front, it just starts snowballing itself.
Yeah, that seems right. This is kind of like what I talk about with the emergent properties of the Zwift physics. So, it's a simulation of reality.
The Zwift physics, everybody. The professor is in the house. We need to put an acronym on that. There's going to be a whole board that we'll do. That'll be a part of the CCL show.
Got to get some
that
books
we have
behind me
up.
here.
The emergent properties. Say that one more time. We need that. We need that comment one more time. And what are you going to label that one? The emergent properties of physics. There we go.
Dude, yeah, I got to get back to with the whiteboard behind me. We need some new assets for that. Let me hit with some facts about the emergent properties of the ZWIFT physics. What I was saying was, this is kind of like a simulation of reality, but there are details about how how the riders interact with each other, how the draft works, that make it so that the things that work outside don't necessarily work the same on ZWIFT, and so it's constantly a matter of experimenting with what the best way to ride on ZWIFT is, and that's an interesting thing. That's what makes being an indoor specialist a separate discipline, and we're seeing that in his Super League with how well the community riders are doing. They're able to keep up with the pro riders, win and animate the race with even not using as much power as the pros, and it's because they sort of maybe subconsciously or consciously through experimentation have learned about all of these details of how to ride well in the ZWIFT universe.
Yeah, right on. So it looks like the group here is not able to drive the pace quite fast enough. This 38 seconds, though, I think, Greg, is going to come down pretty quickly once things level out, a little bit here. This speed is going to be carried fairly quickly into the flat sections, and I have a feeling it will get closed down to about 10 to 15 seconds here. Then it's going to be all about playing the domestique on the